Hello and welcome back to Pay Down Debt Solutions. I'm Jen. Today I want to talk to you guys about crushing debt using credit cards. The majority of you guys out there still want to know how to work down your debt using credit cards. And we know many of you can't take advantage of other tools that are out there not quite yet because of the debts that you have. So today I want to discuss with you a student scenario and how they got out or will get out of their situation using just credit cards. So today I want to talk to you guys about how crushing debt can be and how you can crush debt using your credit cards. Believe it or not, you can do it. And you can do it through velocity banking. Because what we need to do is we need to stop letting banks control us. And it's time that we take control over banks and stop paying them so much interest. Right now, we are paying them a boatload of interest that they don't need and that we need back in our pocket. So we're going to gain control today and learn a different way of banking. Because these guys behind me right here, they were struggling, and they were struggling not only with their finances but with each other because they couldn't come to an agreement on how to run finances. Okay, they were always fighting, they're always picking at each other, and they needed to do something different. And guess what, guys? This happens. This is everyday life. When you're fighting with your spouse over finances, it's not pretty and it's not a good place to be. So, leaving our Zoom call, you could see the relief on their faces, and I'm hoping that they will stick to their plan because it will be phenomenal for them if they do. So you guys, stop letting banks control you. It is time to control the banks. Too many of us let our financial state dictate our emotions and our behavior, such as these guys did right here, okay? And again, Dan and I did the same thing. So I am speaking to you from experience, not just from their experiences, but my own as well. So it's time to start using the banks to your advantage. So what does that mean? Well, we have all these tools out there at our disposal. We just don't know that they're tools. One of them being credit cards, the other being other lines of credit, such as personal lines, home equity lines, business lines of credit, and of course the credit card, right? So lines of credit help you win over banks because you can then put all of your income into them and work all of your expenses out. And while that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, when you start following our teachings and you start following velocity banking, whether it's through us or somebody else that's teaching it, you guys will find the freedom that you deserve. Because you know what? You deserve to be happy, healthy, and in a relationship where you're stress and financial free. We all deserve that. So we teach you to get there, okay? Now, credit cards can get you out of debt and they can do it fast. So today, again, proof, promise, plan, right? I am going to prove to you that velocity banking works and that credit cards can work down your debt faster than the traditional system. I'm going to promise that you will be able to do this by yourself after watching either this video or this video and a couple more to really get your head around what we're doing. And the plan. What is their plan? How do we get out of debt? What are we going to do? Remember, our three-step system: organize, identify, and implement. That's all it is. That's all you have to do, okay? First step, we are going to organize their bills, okay? They've done that. They've organized. They know all of the money's coming in and they know everything that's going out, okay? They know all of that now. They now know what their chargeable expenses are versus their non-chargeable expenses, and that's important and comes into play, especially when we're talking about working down debt with credit cards. And then the last step, the most fun step that there is to implement their plan, okay? To implement it and to continue to work their debt down. So I want you guys to be financially free. I want you to feel the relief that you will feel undoubtedly when you take control and learn how to run your finances different than the way you've been taught. It isn't difficult, it's just a little different. So without further ado, let's get into my student scenario today. Husband and wife that find themselves at odds with each other and at each other's throat due to their finances. Now, first glance, they have cash flow. So you might be looking at this going, they're not in that bad a position. Well, it may not look bad to you, but when you're on the inside of it, and you guys are on the inside of your own situation, you know how terrible it feels when you have all this money going out and you feel like you have nothing to show for it. Because we all know that the cash flow at the end of the day evaporates on us, right? It just does. And so when you learn to bank a different way using velocity banking, using your income to be more advantageous to you, you will work this down faster. So let's take a look. Let's see what we've got. So today we have an income here of $8,144. Their total expenses are $7,794, which leaves them a positive cash flow of $350. And I've listed our mortgage and our 2 car payments because we're not going to take care of those today. It's more important to them to get rid of this debt here. Then later they can work on that debt, which I've shown you in other videos how to chunk down these debts. So for today, our payments, which have to be held into our checking account, right? Because these will not be able to be run through a credit card. So there are certain things you cannot run through a credit card. Those are other loans and other credit cards. Those cannot be handled through your credit card. Now, you may also have some living expense type bills that you can't run through a credit card. Maybe some insurances out there you can't run through a credit card, or maybe, medical insurances. I know some of them you can't. Oh, phone bill. Sometimes they want you to pay your phone bill through your checking account instead of out of a credit card, and they're going to give you a discount. But I'd be wary about that one, you guys, because at the end of the day, sometimes it makes more sense to go ahead and run it through the card, and you end up saving more overall, especially when you're doing a velocity banking plan. But anyway, so there are some charges out there that you cannot run through a credit card. So those have to be held back into the checking account and then paid through the checking account. Okay. So I always want to make that distinction for you, because I don't want you guys thinking you can use all of your income when you do have to hold out certain expenses, such as your debts here that cannot be run through a credit card. Okay, so they have a mortgage for $2,086. They have their car number 1 and car number 2. Car number 1 is $316. Car number 2 is a payment of $487. So these 3 combined are $2,889. Okay, so now let's get into the debts that they have. They have 3 credit cards, and they have actually 4 credit cards. Sorry, because Lowe's is a credit card. It's a store card, though. You can't use it everywhere. And then they have a personal loan here. And we are going to figure out what our plan is, what we're going to do for them. Okay. So their Citibank here is at $14,806. Their payment is $435. It's at a 24% interest rate. It would take them to bank traditionally 4 years and 10 months to work all that debt down, and they would be spending $10,274 in interest to do so. Okay. So then they have a Discover card. It is at $9,200. That's the balance. They owe their payments are $324 a month on that. It's at a 27% rate. 3 years and 10 months, to traditionally bank that down and get rid of it. It would cost them $5,631 to do that. They have a Chase Amazon. It is at a balance of $7,199. $225 is their payment. It is at a 26%. It would take them 4 years and 8 months to eliminate this debt, and they would be spending $5,207 to do so. Then we have Lowe's for $5,100. That is the balance. They have to pay $195 on that. It's at a 33% interest rate, as a lot of these store cards are. You guys watch those store cards. They are a killer. All right, 33% interest. 3 years and 11 months to work this debt down, and it would be $4,030. Okay, so that's what they would be spending due to this interest rate, $4,030 on this $5,100 that they owe. Okay, this is all the traditional banking system, right? The banking system that they find themselves in. It's going to take them years to work this down, and they owe in interest, or they will owe $27,365 in interest debt. The debts that they owe total, as far as their credit cards and loan is concerned, is $46,522. Now, what I want to talk to you guys today too is about limits. All right, so they are limited out on a few of these cards. Okay, so the Citi card is $5,500 is their limit. They're at $14,806, right? Discover is a $10,000 limit. They're at $9,200. So that's pretty close to limit too. Their Chase card, however, this Amazon card, sits at $7,199, but its limit is $20,000. So they have some room to work with that card. So that card is what's going to end up being our debt destroyer today. And of course, the Lowe's card, we can't really do anything with that because we can't run our expenses through it. So we're going to have to pay that on the outside, right? It's going to have to be paid on the outside. So right now, looking at this, my plan would be to take our Discover card and roll it into this Chase Amazon card. Now, the first thing you have to do when you're faced with, wanting to do something like that is to call up the credit card and find out if you can transfer balances over to it. Most of the time you can. Now, for them, they were not offered a special offer. So it is going to come over at the interest rate that it currently is at, which is at the 26%. Okay. So we are going to do that. They also have a 4% balance transfer fee. Okay. So that balance transfer fee has to be taken into account. So we need to look at their chargeables and their non-chargeable expenses, right? So, well, more for us right now, they're chargeable expenses. We need to know what those are because that's what we have to run through our card. And so we also need to know what our available income is because we have to hold out the income that we are, that we're not getting back to us by using the cards. Now, I will be getting back two payments, right? It's going to be the payment for the Discover. Okay, so let me just use a marker to denote which cards we're using. It'll be the payment for the Discover and the payment, of course, for the Chase because we're putting those together and we're running our income out of the Chase card. Okay, so we don't have to account for those in our income because our income as a payment is going onto that card. Thus, the payment that it would be is no longer because we know that what we're going to be putting on that card is going to be more than the payment itself. Okay, so available income here is $8,144. We subtract off our total loan and cars right here. And then we subtract off the $435 because that has to run on its own outside of our debt destroyer. We are also going to subtract the $195 because that again has to run outside of our debt destroyer. Okay. And then the $327 because same reason, that's going to continue on its schedule outside of the debt destroyer. And of course, we can't use loans as a debt destroyer, can we? Because loans are locked, right? You put your money in, you can't pull it back out. Now, I might want to also say that this loan here was for 72 months. It is now down to 10,217. It was at 18,800 to begin with. Okay. So that's why they have 2 years, 11 months. And that's why the interest is $2,200-ish around that because they've already paid interest on it. So what has to run outside along with what we're running on the debt destroyer with it, which is the Amazon card here, is going to be Citi, Lowe's, and the personal loan. So how do we begin this then? We have to roll in our Discover into our Chase, right? So this balance is coming over here. Now, when we do that, we know that we're going to have a balance transfer fee of 4%. So I have calculated that for you, okay? So 9,200 times 0.04 gives us the 368. Now, this is the easiest way to calculate that. It is technically an algebraic problem, but we're not going to get into that. This is the easiest way to do it so you don't overspend, okay? And you know what your balance is that the fee is that you need to account for. So 16,399 then is is these two added together, right? So it would be 16,000. I should put a dollar sign there. So 16,399, okay. But we have to add our 368 because that is what we owe for a fee, okay? So that means these two together gives us the $16,767. So now what? Well, we start running our plan, right? So we know that we're starting with $16,767. We bring in our available income, which is the $4,298. We bring our income in. That drops us immediately to $12,469. So what does that do? That drops the interest then that you would have owed on that card at this level, right? So what makes velocity banking work is the interest dropping when you put your income in. It lowers the amount of interest because the interest is calculated on the average daily balance of that card. So we're messing around with our balances, right? Our average daily balance. And that means that we are going to owe less overall in interest on that card when we're running income in and expenses out, okay? So that's exactly what we do. So our $42.98 comes in, drops us to $12,469. Then our expenses here, our chargeable expenses of the $3,399 comes in. Okay. Now we have to calculate our interest. So how do we do that, right? How do we do that? Well, let's take a calculator here and let's find out. So if we start, because we have to run an average, right? We're running an average. We have to take our 16,767 and we're going to add it to the 12,469. Okay, our high balance plus our low balance equals 29,236. But we have to divide that by 2 to get our average, which is 14,618. Then we're going to take our average and we're going to multiply by our interest rate, and that is 26%. Okay, so that gives us $3,800 for the year. But we don't want the year, do we? We want 1 month, because we know as we work our strategy is going to work our interest down. So that means our interest is going to be $316. Okay, so $316 should be our interest. Hopefully I've done that right. Okay, so $316 is what we have to add to this. And then we start working down our problem. All right, so let's just double check it. We're going to take our 16,767. We're going to add our 12,469. We are going to then divide that by 2, and then we're going to multiply that by 0.26, and then we're going to divide that by 12, which gives me the same number. So that's good, right? All right, guys. Anyway, so if we do this now, we're going to add these together. So we've got 12,469. We're going to add it to 33.99. We're going to add 316. So that gives me $16,184. Okay, so $16,184. Now, we do some checks here. Is $16,184 higher or lower than the 16,767 that we started with? Well, it's lower, right? So we know we're working in the right direction. So this is month 1. We are starting month 1 now at 16,184. So what happens? Well, we simply bring in our income again, right? Our available income, which is $42.98. Okay, so we bring in our available income. And then what do we get? That drops us to, so we're going to subtract out the $42.98. Whoops, it's not subtracting. Okay, so 16,184 minus 42.98 gives me 11,886. So 11,886. All right. Now, what happens next? What happens next? Well, we're going to bring over our expenses, right? Because our expenses have to come out of that card too. So in a sense, they are put back onto the card. All right. So our expenses get put back on, right? So now we have to figure out what our interest is. Okay. So we take our low balance, we're going to add it to the high balance of 16,184. That gives me 28.70. Okay, I'm going to divide that by 2. It gives me 14.35. I'm then going to multiply that by our interest rate, which gives me 36.49. And then I'm going to divide that by 12, which gives me 304. So as you can see, my interest is dropping now, isn't it? What did I say, 304? Okay, so 304. All right, so there is our second month right here. All right, and I will get to the point here. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you guys could see the math on this. And I will, whoops, I got to add back in the $33.99 plus the 304, which gives me $15,589. So 15,589. Hopefully, again, I haven't fat fingered that. Okay, so then when you look at this, you're going to do your checks again. 15,589, is it less than or greater than the 16,184? Well, it's less than, so we know this is working. All right. So while this is running, okay, while that's running, and this is going to take me 18 months. Okay, this will take me months. Oh my gosh, I can't spell today. It's going to take me 18 months, and it's going to cost me $3,517. Okay. Now, how do I know that? How do I know that? Because I'm going to run this down to completion until I don't owe any more interest on it. And then it's paid off, right? So I'm going to run this for 18 months. $3,517 is what I'll pay in interest. Now, simultaneously, though, I'm running my Citi card, I'm running my Lowe's card, and I'm running my loan here. Okay, so they're running at the same time. So I need to calculate the interest and find out what the balances are by 18 months to see if there's anything I can do, because my next plan would be when this card, since it has our high balance, is at zero, I'm probably going to roll those balances and do it once again, right? That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to need to know what those balances are at the end of 18 months. And I'm also going to want to know the amount of interest that I have paid. Okay, so let me get those numbers for you. Give me 1 second. So I'm back with the last bit of our numbers to calculate. So we know that the first portion of this took 18 months and we ended up spending $3,517 to run out the Discover, the Chase, and our expenses and run through it. We know that during that 18 months, our personal loan balance is down to $5,539 at the 18-month mark. They have spent $946 in interest. Citi will be at $11,832 after 18 months. And in interest, they'll spend $4,856. Then we have the Lowe's card. The balance will be at $3,846 after 18 months. And the interest that they'll pay on that is $2,256. So we are going to then add these up, the 5,539, the 11,832 plus the 3,846. We're going to add those balances. We are then going to put them onto our Chase card. Now, I had to make a correction here because I said it was $20,000 limit. It's not, it's 25. So I was wondering why my numbers weren't working out for a minute, but that's because this is actually a $25,000 limit. Okay. So we then have to add those together. We're going to get $21,217. We have to multiply by our 4% though, right? So at 4%, it's going to be $848 that we have to add to this, giving us $22,065. Now, one thing to remember, once we've worked our balances down, okay, during this time, this 18 months, they have pretty decent credit scores. So at this time, they could, after 18 months, be able to get a balance transfer, right? So what happens notoriously with these credit cards is that once you pay a balance off, okay, so remember, this Chase Amazon card here is going to be paid off in 18 months. Chances are they're going to get a letter stating that they can bring balances over and they'll give them a special offer. Now, I'm assuming right now that they're not getting a special offer and that it's going to be at the 26% interest rate, okay? But most of the time, you guys are going to end up getting balance transfer offers. And so a lot of times, the last bit of it, you're going to be working down the majority, if not all of it, for zero interest. Okay, so it would be just the balance transfer fee you add in. So keep that in mind when I'm running this, that it might actually even be less for you. Okay, so I've added the 848 to the 21,217. That gives us 22,065. Our income comes in of 5,255. Whoa, wait a minute. What happened to our income? What happened? Well, it increased, didn't it? Because now we are taking our loan balance, our Citi balance, and our Lowe's balance. Those are coming back to us, right? So we don't have to hold that out of our income anymore. So now our income is $5,255. So we've gotten back even more. And so as you can imagine, this is, even though it's starting out higher than we started when we rolled these two together, it's going to go faster because the income is greater, right? Our income is greater. So we start with this, we bring in the 5255 and it drops us to 16,810. We have to add in our expenses. We add in our interest, which was calculated, right, at 421. So that drops, or that brings our balance back up to 20,630. Is this 20,630 less than or greater than the 2265? Well, it's less than, so we know that it's still working. We're still moving in the right direction. So at the end of the day, what does all of this look like? Okay, so we know we've spent 18 months here. We know we spent $3,517. We know that we've spent $946, right? So let's just do this together, right? So we have 3517. We add to that the 946 plus the 4856 plus the 2256. And what does that equal? Okay, let me reveal this though. So it took us 11 months to run this down. Okay, so to run this, it took 11 months and $2,801 in interest. So that gives us the $14,376 in total that they have spent now in interest instead of $27,365. Now, how long did it take us? Well, the 11 plus the 18 is what, 29 months? So a little over 2 years it took to do this. When here, you're not done with this for almost 5 years, 4 years, 10 months for the big one here, 4 years, 8 months, 3 years, 11 months. So we know that not only did we save time, but we've saved ourselves a ton of money using nothing else than what they already had in their pocket. They didn't go out and get a home equity. They didn't go out and get a personal line of credit. They didn't go out and get a business line of credit if they had a business. They didn't do any of that. And they were still able to save themselves money. So whether you have the ability to get another line of credit or not doesn't matter. You guys, even if you can't combine balances, it doesn't matter so long as you pick a debt destroyer and you run your income in and your expenses out. You will win at the end of the day. And you will roll balances when you can, if you can. If not, you roll to the next debt destroyer. It's that simple, you guys. You just have to know how to do it. You have to think outside the box and you have to stop banking in the traditional banking system. Have an awesome day. I hoped you've learned something and I hope you try Velocity Banking. We get people every day, you guys, that are emailing us telling us how awesome Velocity Banking is, how great it's working for them. And I know it can work for you too. If you want our worksheets so that you can organize, remember, just email us at info@paydowndebtsolutions.com. We'd be happy to send you our worksheets. No problem. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.